Okay, hi, I'm a grateful follower of Jesus Christ. I struggle with codependency, alcohol abuse, and depression, and my name is Donna. I serve as the National
Hey,
Director.
Donna.
Hi, I serve as the National Director for Celebration. And I have joining me today Tina Price. She is the Celebration Place Coordinator at Saddleback, a couple of her team members. So Tina, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Tina, and like Donna said, I'm the coordinator for Celebration Place at Saddleback Lake Forest. I have been coordinating the program for 2 years now, and I've actually been on the team for 10 years coming up this September.
Hi, I'm Macy. I kind of work alongside Tina. I'm known as like a teacher's aide or kind of like a coach for Celebration, and I've been on the team for 4 years.
Hi, I'm Earl. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I struggle with rage and gluttony and pride. I think my title is a Celebration Place classroom leader, and I've been doing that for, I don't know, maybe 13 years?
At
Oh,
least
wow.
13. Mm-hmm.
Wow, so you've been with it since it started, Earl, huh?
Yeah, since we adopted the curriculum.
So I want to thank you guys for being here with me today. Celebration Place was available for purchase in 2009 at the Celebrate Recovery Summit. And so since that time, Marna Monahan, she was the director before me, put together a DNA statement for Celebration Place. And so one of those things is that DNA statements is that Celebration Place is accountable to Jesus, the local church, and the model of Saddleback Church. And obviously for safety reasons, it's impossible for us to visit what you guys are doing. We don't want to put kids at risk. And I can't imagine the amount of work the background checks would take for all of us to do a tour for your Celebration Place. And then for confidentiality reasons, we're not going to videotape anything that happens in your Celebration Place. So the best thing we can do is ask you guys to tell us about what goes on in Celebration Place at Saddleback. So I'm really excited to hear what you guys have to say. So if you don't mind, let's get started. I've got 8 questions here. So let's see what we can learn today. One of the things I get a lot of questions at training is regarding volunteers. So how do you guys recruit team members for Celebration Place?
Yeah, so we actually have a few paid staff members on our team. So those, when we have openings there, those are posted on our church website. But we do mostly have volunteers. And some of the ways that we recruit them are through our class system we have at church. So we have 4 classes, 101 being the membership class. Then when they take class 301, that's where they discover where they're shaped to serve. Mm-hmm. So for that, I just make sure that team that does the 301 class has all of our information, has flyers, has whatever they need to know about our ministry, so they can find people that want to get plugged in to serving with children. And then also presence at any weekend ministry fairs that the church might have. Word of mouth is a big one because our leaders recruit leaders for us. A lot of times they end up bringing on their family members.
Nice.
And then one that I strongly believe in, besides recruiting, is retaining the leaders that we do recruit. So I do for our volunteers, I offer them an every other Friday option if that interests them. And then just letting them know how appreciated they are. So we do together once a month. Our Celebrate Recovery graciously provides dinner for us together as a team, and then we celebrate our team's birthdays, team anniversaries, and just finding ways to help them feel a part of the CR big picture and the vital role that they play in that. And then all that being said, sometimes we also have to get creative and figure out some new ways. A couple years ago, we were desperate for some leaders. And so Macy and I brainstormed, and Macy, do you want to share a little bit about what we came up with at that time?
Yeah. So here at Saddleback, we have college ministry, and so they go to college ministry and see if we can get any younger adults or young adults to volunteer or even like join our staff. And we were able to kind of go on stage and tell them what we do. And then we had a table set up in the back if they had any more questions they wanted to ask or to get Tina's information. And one guy came up, he was a Marine in his like early 20s, and so he was down at Camp Pendleton, and he drove an hour just to come up to Saddleback Church for the college ministry. And he ended up following up with Tina, and he was our volunteer for 2 years, still being in the Marines. So still working as a Marine, going down to Pendleton and driving up an hour, even an hour and a half sometimes every Friday night. The kids loved him, especially the boys. And during that time he volunteered with us, he got stationed in Japan. And so for a little bit, our 1st through 6th grade class would write him letters and tell him how much they missed him and that they were praying for him. And we even sent letters to some of his friends as well. And so, yeah, so Tina and I got to send those over to Japan for a little bit. And then when he came back, everybody was just so excited to have him back. He was one of our most like dedicated volunteers. So.
Aw, that's such an amazing story. You know, it takes a unique person to serve in the military, and so he had a huge servant's heart. It's just
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was a great way for kids to learn how to give back at a young age. So that's really cool. So, okay, the next question I get a lot is, how do you decide what lesson to teach each week?
So Tina and I get together each week at the start of the week and prepare everything. So we read over the lessons, we get any supplies that we may need for the centers. And so our lessons, we match it with the lesson that the adults are learning that Friday night. And so we just prep it. And then on Friday, we call it a rally. So we get all of our leaders together and we kind of go over a quick summary of the lesson. Like Tina said, we celebrate any birthdays or anniversaries that are going on that week. We make sure to remind them every day that the worship and serenity prayer and teaching time and small group guidelines are part of the DNA. So it's mandatory. And then we all pray together before the night starts, and then we send them off to their classrooms where the leaders kind of go over it again. And we have our leaders look over it and see maybe if like one center, because they know their kids best.
Mm-hmm.
So if one center might work better, then they can skip a center as long as it doesn't interfere with the DNA.
Mm-hmm.
But if one center brings up more discussion, then they feel free to be like, okay, maybe skip center 2 because center 1 is really, really impacting the kids. And so we kind of give our leaders a little bit of flexibility with that.
I think that's so important for people to know that if it doesn't fit your kids, then you don't have to do it. It's like, empower leaders to make those kind of decisions. So we don't have to check every box. We just have to meet our kids where they're at. I think a lot of people, myself included, I'm a rule follower. And so if it's in the book, then I'm going to do it. And the kids do it regardless, And so we had some miserable kids my first year doing this thing. They were like, I hate this, Miss Donna. It's in the book. We got to do it. So, but I think it's good to know and to affirm other leaders. If you know something's not going to work for your kids, then skip it. We have permission to make it fit what we're doing. So that's really cool. So thank you for that. Now this is a question that I'm really dying to know. So what does the celebration place look like at Saddleback from the time a parent brings the child up to sign in, and then when they pick them up? So this is probably the longest answer that you're going to have.
Okay, we'll find out. We're going to have Earl take that one since he's our classroom leader for over 13 years.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So right after rally, we go in the rooms, prep just like Macy said, and then when the parents come to check kids in, like Donna said, We typically are taking the first maybe 30 to 45 minutes to have one leader check the kids in and another leader just kind of catch up with the kids. It's kind of the social hour, so to speak. It's a free time where we have, at least in my class, we've got a couple tables. This is 1st through 6th grade or 4th through 6th grade, just depending on our numbers. With games and cards and just things to keep the kids occupied, things that look inviting, especially to new kids that they can see from the doorstep. And they'll get engaged in those games, and then we'll try and engage them, get to know them, or if we already know them, get caught up with how their week has been and how they're doing. Tina and Macy can tell you that the actual schedule, they're very meticulous. Tina is very meticulous with our time schedule. But I think that starts at 6:45, and then free time is typically going until maybe 7:15, 7:20-ish, just depending on what we have, how long we think the lesson will take. So after free time, we gather in a circle, kind of like CR, and we go over the rules, just like CR, every week. Very important to me. And then we'll do introductions. And with those introductions, we typically will ask them, obviously, state their name, and then to just share something random, and we'll have people pick, like, what's your favorite food, or what are you doing for Easter, or something like that. So maybe like 2 or 3 questions just to get the kids engaged and interested in introductions. And then after that's done, we'll go into worship. So we'll it's typically Jana Elira, where she's singing very simple songs about God with hand motions. A lot of them are like ASL type motions. So it's very surprising, because even 6th grade boys that are too cool for it, like when they're in the midst of it, they'll often get into it, and that's one of my favorite parts of the night. And then after that, we will gather together with, if my class is 4th through 6th, then we'll join the 1st through 3rd class for 1 or 2 centers that are a lot more active and need more room. We'll meet in a different room, a bigger room. And then, so we'll do a couple of centers there, then we'll come back to our class, finish up the rest of the lesson and centers, and then we'll do journals. That's kind of just depending on how the lesson goes and the centers, but it's typically at the very end of the night. We'll reserve the last 15 minutes or so for journals, kind of to try and connect all the centers together, which, depending on the lesson is sometimes more difficult than others. And then leave kids with a take home, literally and figuratively. And then the parents pick them up. Very
cool. So it sounds like you incorporate all parts of it as it's laid out in the book, and you have the flexibility of which centers to do and which not. So making it fit your kids. And the main thing that I took away from that is you make a point to get connected to the children that are there with you. And I think that's what kids need more than anything is safe structure and connection. And those two go really well. So I think sounds like you guys do a great job with that. So thank you, Earl.
Thanks, Earl.
So the next is, what determines your sign-in process?
So we use the exact same system and procedure that our Weekend Children's Ministry uses. It's a check-in system, and then they are handed a label that they then have to bring back when they pick up their child. So we just follow their guidelines completely. We only release a child to the parent or caregiver who dropped them off. Okay. Extra layer of safety and protection. For my leader hands that label to is the one who has to bring that label back and pick up the child. And we make them aware of that. We tell them that at the drop-off time. So safety and security is our number one value. So very on top of that.
Who do you allow to come to your celebration place? Is it open for the whole community like VBS, or restrict it? So I was wondering, think about that.
We allow any child whose parent or caregiver is attending CR. Said, they are more than welcome to bring a friend. That parent would just have to take responsibility for that child that they're bringing with them, and they need to be attending CR. And then our children are always placed in age-appropriate classes.
Very cool. So I think that the main thing there would be that there's an adult on campus that is going to be responsible for that child. So in your experience, what purpose does Celebration Place serve in Celebrate Recovery?
It's childcare, so parents can attend CR together, and they're attending as a family, so that's huge. It's a family program. And then that they're learning about the same topic as parents, so their caregiver who brought them, so they can discuss together as a family. And then, Earl, did you want to add to that?
We use the phrase pre-covery, and what that means, if you haven't heard it before, is it's just what it means to me is that we are preparing kids to defend themselves from some of the temptations that their parents or that we have fallen prey to. So in other words, I think Celebration Place really helps break the chains that have come with generational sins, and helps them to learn from the mistakes from their parents, and avoid following some of the bad paths that they've taken.
And I think that's very important. Introduce an option. Because if they don't have an option, then they think that what their parents does is about them to do. So I think that's very important. So thank you, Earl.
Thanks, Earl.
But what would you say is the best part of Celebration Place for children and their families?
There's so many best parts. So I'm going to share one, that it's a family program where children have a safe place to talk to someone who loves Jesus and loves them.
For me, it's just seeing week by week the families coming back and really getting to know them, the adults and the kids, more and more, and just seeing the parents or the guardians just growing with the kids week by week as well. You see their growth if they keep coming back. That's just been really, really awesome.
I love that stuff too. Some of the best testimonies about Jesus's redemption in lives I've experienced through Celebrate Recovery, and being specifically in the place of the kids, because kids will share some of the probably more the families. I mean, CR people are transparent anyway, but kids have such a way of sharing how things are going on in their family, that after you've been there for a few years, you can see some of the greatest miracles that you've ever seen in a family. So absolutely, I love that, Macy. I didn't know how to answer this because I think it really depends on the kid. So I actually reached out to, she's a current Celebration Place leader, but she started off as a student. And then her mom actually came on staff, and then she did too. And I asked her what her favorite part about it was, and she says just being there with consistent leaders. So the relationships that were built. And I think it's kind of just what Tina was saying. It's that they don't have those relationships or those mentors, so to speak, or people to confide in. A lot of kids don't, at least, and I didn't growing up. So that was very important to her growth and her relationship with Christ. And I think a lot of our other kids can echo it. When Macy was talking about our friend the Marine, those kids were, they were crushed to the point of tears when he was deployed in Japan. And then when he came back, like they were elated, like some of the greatest joy. And we follow them right every week for a year, like
Right.
the happiest time of the year for a lot of the kids. So I think it's the relationships that are built.
And I think adults in Celebrate Recovery would tell you the same thing, is having those authentic relationships. And so this brings us to our last question. What would your advice be to a brand new Celebration Place leader?
Being that relationships are probably the most important thing, valuable thing to the people we're trying to serve, then my advice would just be to just keep showing up. Just be there. I've had the pleasure of training up a lot of new leaders and volunteers, and most of them are very timid and doubtful as to what they have to bring to the table. But the skills that are needed, the experience that'll come, but the heart of just wanting to show up and the consistency, that's really, I think, all God needs from you. Just show up, just be there, and God will use you. And then also just maybe try and take on one new responsibility maybe every week. You mess up, no big deal. Again, God, that doesn't matter as much as you being there.
The advice that I would give actually comes from Proverbs 19:21, and it says, "A person may have ideas concerning God's plan for his life, but only the designs of his purpose will succeed in the end." And I kind of take that, God brought you to Celebration Place for a reason, and that you are good enough to be a part of this team, and you are good enough to make an impact on these kids and teach them about God, and make an impact like on this ministry and just be a part of the ministry, because it's just all God's plan for you. So that's just my advice, is to encourage them that like they are meant to be here, meant to be with us.
This is something that I always share with my new leaders when I'm doing the orientation when they start out on our team. This is a little quote from Johnny Baker that he shared with me when I became the coordinator. Something he said that really just resonated with me is about the ministry. He said, "It's not easy, but it's so rewarding." Wow, he just nailed it right there. So simple. So I tell the new leaders, we're going to have rough nights, but hang in there. Like Earl said, keep coming back. The rewards are priceless and they're eternal.
Yeah. So like Joe Clark says, we're making an eternal difference. So,
Right.
So do you guys have anything else you'd like to add?
I would like to add something that I remember when I was walking you through our schedule. That has changed. It's constantly evolved over the years. There have been times when we've had live worship. It wasn't Jana. We had a leader who just felt gifted in leading worship, and she would play a song in the background and she would make up the hand motions songs. There's times when we've had bigger spaces to utilize, and had our free time as a physical game, which would be nice, and it would tire out the kids and make them more receptive to the lesson part. So I know as the model, sometimes people seem intimidated with the resources of Saddleback, but I feel, and we are blessed for sure, but definitely our own resources have changed. Our meeting places have changed many times over the years, and our ways of doing things have changed. So,
but the message never changes, does it?
Nope.